是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打打 golf， 就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用，为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC World， 现场我们也会提供红酒。
你是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打打 golf， 就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用，为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC Forex Capital 的 IB 优惠，近日我们会在柔佛新山有一场 Forex Capital 的线下 IB 招商会。现场我们也会提供红酒给大家，让我们一边品尝红酒，一边讨论如何把你目前的业绩推上更高峰。点击下面的链接，我们会有专人联系你，我们到时见。
你是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打打 golf， 就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。 我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用，为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC Forex Capital 的 IB 优惠，近日我们会在柔佛新山有一场 Forex Capital 的线下 IB 招商会。现场我们也会提供红酒给大家，让我们一边品尝红酒，一边讨论如何把你目前的业绩推上更高峰。点击下面的链接，我们会有专人联系你。我们到时见。
你是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打golf，就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用，为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC Forex Capital 的 IB 优惠，近日我们会在柔佛新山有一场 Forex Capital 的线下 IB 招商会。现场我们也会提供红酒给大家，让我们一边品尝红酒，一边讨论如何把你目前的业绩推上更高峰。点击下面的链接，我们会有专人联系你。我们到时见。
你是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打golf，就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。 我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC Forex Capital 的 IB 优惠，近日我们会在柔佛新山有一场 Forex Capital 的线下 IB 招商会。现场我们也会提供红酒给大家，让我们一边品尝红酒，一边讨论如何把你目前的业绩推上更高峰。点击下面的链接，我们会有专人联系你。我们到时见。
你是某某平台的 IB 吗？
我常常听身边的顾客朋友说，做 IB 的都是很轻松的工作，不是去打打 golf， 就是去和客户喝茶，就能赚到可高达5位数的收入了。
我只想说，你只看到了一部分的事实。我认识的一些 IB， 他们的平台都没有提供很多的 support 给他们的自家 IB， 有时被客户问到 signal 或市场分析，他们还要去其他平台买 signal 提供给客户。
而我能够把我 IB 的业绩一直保持并持续成长，选择一个能帮助你发挥的平台，绝对是最重要的决定。毕竟选择比努力重要。在 VC Forex Capital， 你和你的客户可以交易到的产品有外汇、贵金属如黄金、原油、虚拟货币、指数和超过400个美国股票。而且公司会提供的 support 有每周至少2次的线上课程、Telegram 信号群、每日市场分析，还有6月开始，我们会有著名的市场分析师兼 YouTuber 开用为你和你的客户提供线上直播，为你现场分析市场，现场带单。最重要的是 Forex Capital 是一家成功获得美国期货协会所颁发的 MFA 牌照，让你和你的客户可以安心的把资金投资在这里交易和建立你的 IB 团队。如果你有兴趣了解 VC Forex Capital 的 IB 优惠，近日我们会在柔佛新山有一场 Forex Capital 的线下 IB 招商会。现场我们也会提供红酒给大家，让我们一边品尝红酒，一边讨论如何把你目前的业绩推上更高峰。点击下面的链接，我们会有专人联系你。我们到时见。
All right. Good evening, everyone. So we get started for today's session over here. Yeah, again, slight technical difficulties for that delay. But nonetheless, we'll still be looking at the market. And while we started 15 minutes late, we just extend a little bit, just to make sure everything is being covered with you guys. Okay, so welcome back. For those of you who have been joining us since Tuesday, okay, I think roughly you know what's the flow. You can't get an idea of what we're gonna do, right? For those of you who are first time joining in for today, what we're gonna do very quickly is to give you an overview here. We're gonna cover very quickly what's some of the events that has happened this week and what are some of the remaining events you need to take note of, and then we'll look into the technical charts and walk you through, okay, in terms of like FX, commodities like gold, silver, and crude oil. Then we'll look into the indices in terms of S&P, as well as crypto in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah. Okay, but of course, you definitely need to take note of your trading margin, which means if your capital is smaller, then suggest you stick to FX. However, if let's say you are interested to trade gold, indices, or even Bitcoin, or some of the stocks CFD, you need to have sufficient margin, right? So for all these things, all these details, do talk to your account manager respectively. Okay, so as we're speaking, actually, the time zone here, let me just very quickly change it because this is still in London when I was back there in London, right? Let me change this to Malaysia so you can see that as well. Okay, so 8:30. Hey, just now we do have the ECB press conference. We have the ECB monetary policy as well. Tuesday I mentioned, we don't really expect the ECB to hike rate. Okay, and of course fundamentally I explained that from a fundamental perspective, ECB is one of the central bank that is not hiking, while many of the other banks are actually raising interest rate, right? That put them on a fundamental perspective bearish. Okay, but we did talk about from a technical point of view how you can look out for opportunities as well. And today we're going to talk a little bit about it because the euro is indeed moving, okay, as we're speaking right now. Of course, depending on your strategy, you might have some trade running. I do have 3 euro trades running. I've actually managed it already before the live session start. And the risk, all those are taken care of, right? But we'll talk a little bit about it as we look into charts later. Okay, so we always mention risk events like that is gonna create some kind of catalyst, volatility to move price in the market. Okay, and as a trader, you can't be fearful of it, okay? Because every time if you are fearful of such volatility and news, you will miss out on moves, that can be very lucrative. Okay, of course, risk is there. That's where you need to manage your risk. But at the same time, that's where we want the volatility to come in. Yeah. So for this week, other than today, tomorrow we do have 2 more important data. One is from Canadian, okay, which we'll take a look at it. As I mentioned on Tuesday, today we'll take a look at it to share with you a little bit how you can deploy a news trading strategy if you're interested in it, specifically on the Canadian. Okay, so we'll look at dollar CAD a little more later on in the charts, as well as the dollar as well as the dollar over here, because we do have the CPI and core CPI, which can create some kind of volatility as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover for today's session. Good, so let's jump into the chart. Some of this we have talked about it in a little bit more details on Tuesday. Okay, but for the benefit for everyone who, maybe some of you who just joined in and some of you probably need some refresher, we'll walk through some of this pair again. Okay, now first up, I always mention it's important, whenever you do analysis, it's good to take note of the dollar. And I share with you that this week will primarily be bearish on the dollar. I would say look for sell opportunity at least for the near to mid term. Okay, at least one more move to the downside. Nothing has changed from the technical perspective since Tuesday, and now we're still looking for sell. Okay, though we did talk about how you want to look up for the 103.10. Looking at today's movement here, we might not get that next move up before the down. We might start to see the market start moving down from here, right? This is another little tip for you guys as well. Okay, of course, we use a little bit of FIBS, a little bit of expectation projection, but I always share with traders, it's not going to be always 100% as what we want. Okay, sometimes you need to be adaptive to what the market is telling you. Okay, so a little tip over here. Last the Tuesday, okay, we talk about this principle of Elliott wave where we tend to see three move, 1 2 3. Okay, and of course we were expecting 1 2, and of course the third move somewhere higher here around 103, then we look for a sell, right? But looking at the market momentum right now, we might not get it, or we might. Okay, again, nothing's 100% in the market. But a little tip today over here is for you to take note that you can see this little high has been broken. Okay, so from a pattern perspective, we can still see this as a 1 2 3, which means this has already complete its corrective structure, and this can be ready to go. Okay, so one of the confirmation level that you can keep an eye on, okay, is from a breakout perspective. If the market is able to break off this trend line, the yellow color one, then we have a good probability that we can continue to see more downside. Okay, and the first target for dollar weakness is going to be somewhere around 101.3. Okay, and if that level is being able to be broken, then we can of course see more downside from there, and dollar can in fact go lower, perhaps towards 99 level. Okay, so overall nothing has changed. The direction is still the same. We're still focusing on the downside. Okay, now I'd like to talk a little bit about euro. Okay, last Tuesday we did mention, dollar and euro quite an inverse relationship, where if the dollar is, DXY is going up, likely euro is coming down and vice versa, right? And last Tuesday I remember we draw this, right? 1 2 3, somewhere at the bottom we're gonna look to buy the euro. Okay, but as the market develop, okay, I always highlight, you can't force what you want to see. Okay, but instead you need to follow what the market is trying to tell you. So in this case here, today I did see a little bit of a different pattern forming. The direction is still the same, just different pattern, and therefore the entry execution might be slightly different, right? Previously we were looking at a pending buy limit. Today I actually got involved in it with a breakout trade, which is a buy stop order. Okay, and you can of course right now see this trade is running. The entry, if you're still interested in it, is not too far off. Okay, the entry was 107.50. The stop is below 1.0650. Okay, which is a 100 pip stop, and the target you can see up there, that will put you at 1.1060. Okay, so overall risk to reward is about 1:3, not too bad. Okay, whether this trade is going to be working 100%, I don't know. Okay, but we have the risk involved, managing it, our stop loss, managing our risk, so that's fine. Okay, so for those of you interested, I think we are still pretty near the entry. You can consider that. Now, what is this pattern? Okay, from an Elliott wave or even a traditional technical pattern, this is a potential what we call a triangle, okay, or a consolidating symmetrical triangle. You can be more specific, but the idea is we talk about it, we get a strong move, we get a consolidation or what we call correction. There's a good probability we're going to see more upside, right? And that's the reason why we are looking to buy it. Okay, so this is on euro dollar. If I go to the higher time frame, you can see that again we have been euro dollar, right? We have been seeing it falling for some time. Even if this continue to push up a little bit towards our target, it's still considered more of like a retracement, right? After a huge drop, the market pulled back a little. Okay, so we have a lot of upside opportunity that we can potentially catch, and this trade is therefore worth the risk to reward ratio. Okay, so nothing is 100%, but we as traders, we're just basically assessing, is that risk worth taking, right? If it's worth it, we put in that trade. Okay, so this is for those of you who are keen. A quick update from Tuesday as well, because there's some changes. Okay, another one to look out for is the GBP USD. We did talk about it a little bit more detail on Tuesday as well, where we share you want to consider your risk exposure in terms of the market correlation. Okay, where euro and the pound tends to move in tandem, and therefore you do not want to trade both concurrently. So over here, if you take a look at the euro dollar trade, hey, if you're looking to buy At the same time, we do have a setup on pound dollar. If you're also looking to buy the pound dollar, then you might want to manage your risk in terms of lot size, right? Maybe reduce it a little bit and things like that. Okay. Now, for those of you who are keen, I'm looking to buy a breakout trade on pound dollar at 1.26. Okay. The stop loss is going to be at 1.2430. So it's about 170 pips of stops. The target here, I'm a little bit conservative. I'm just looking at 1.2945. Okay. So the risk to reward ratio is about just 1:2. It's a short-term play. But same thing as Euro, if this is going to kick off to the upside, there's huge upside potential. But we'll manage the trade as it goes, right? So right now, for those of you who are keen, you can consider something like that, a breakout. Alternatively, okay, as I mentioned yesterday, on Tuesday as well, you can wait for this to perhaps come down a little bit more. You can look for a buy bottom here as well, right? And we did put in that fib. Swing low to swing high. Okay, you can look for a 50 and a 618. Okay, and we did talk about how confluences happen, right? The Fibonacci of 61.8 and this channel here looks very nice. Okay, so two potential entry. One is at the 618 where you can put in a pending limit. The other is you wait for a breakout, which you put in a pending buy stop, right? A pending stop order. Okay. So pound dollar, keep on monitoring on it. I think the opportunity is gonna come pretty soon, right? If not this week, maybe next week. Okay. Quick one on Aussie dollar. We did talk about it, right? Short-term downside with a potential target of 0.7050. The market is moving quite nicely right now. For those of you who are trading this, I would suggest you can start to manage your position. Okay, do take note of this level. Okay, again, don't be overly greedy. What I would suggest is that if the market does reach this level, at least take partial profits. If not, if you're happy with it, just exit that trade. And somewhere around here, you can potentially start looking for another move to the upside. Okay, but we'll talk about it when it happens, maybe next week. Okay, for now, continue to just look for sell opportunity. Okay, so Aussie dollar is moving quite nicely as well as we're speaking right now, right? You can see the momentum. Okay, so a couple of this trade is moving quite as what we have expected. I'll talk a little bit about dollar Canadian and we'll go into details as it for news trading as well, right? To share with you a little bit in terms of the thought process. Now, Tuesday we did share that dollar Canadian has completed this 1, 2, 3. Somewhere around there, that's where the fits as well. Harmonic move, 1:1. And we're kind of expecting a nice reaction to the upside, yeah? And as of today, the market is not really moving yet, okay? But I'm interested to look for a breakout, okay? I'll give you this level first, then I'll explain to you why. Okay, dollar Canadian, I'm looking at 1.2620 for the break. Okay, the stop is at 2.515, okay, which is just that previous low, and the target here is 2.800. Okay, so kind of short-term trade, right? The risk reward is about 1:1.6 or 1.7. Okay, can this go all the way up? Of course, right? But at least I always look at what's my first target. Is it worthwhile? Okay. Now, dollar Canadian here, one perspective is I'm looking at it from a news trading angle. The other one, of course, I'm also looking at it from a swing trade perspective, right? Where if this starts to go higher, the opportunity of it moving all the way back to its previous top can be quite lucrative. Okay, so from a news trading perspective, okay, I always say when a news is released, okay, nobody will know what or which direction the price will go. Okay, no one will know. Okay, and a lot of times traders will have this thought process and say that, oh, if the news is good, then naturally the price should go up, and if the news is bad, the price should go down. Not necessarily true, because through experience, if you monitor the news, sometimes you realize, hey, the news is good, but how come the price went down? Or the news can be very bad, but how come the price goes up? Okay, there's a lot of explanation to go into it. You can use from sentiment perspective, you can use from expectation perspective. You can use some of the concept where people say, it's already priced in and things like that. But for me, the easiest way to really just accept it and to deal with it, okay, you just look at a chart, okay, and accept the fact that it's never going to be 100%. Okay, so that gives me the conclusion and say that news or risk events basically creates catalysts. Okay, and what I mean by catalyst is that it gives the market a specific reason to move. Okay, so it's like a fuel. Okay, so for something to burn, you need fuel. Okay, so news and risk event gives the market that fuel to move. Okay, it gives it a reason to start moving prices. Okay, so that's what we meant by catalyst. So when you look at it from the perspective, it's not really giving you any specific direction, but it's giving you the opportunity where price will highly likely move in a more volatile manner as compared to usual. Right? So how do we combine that? Okay, so from a technical perspective, okay, every trade we need to first decide our direction we want to focus on. Okay, so for me, this comes from a technical perspective. Okay, so from a technical chart, if the chart pattern is telling me upside is higher probability, I will naturally focus on that. Okay, and the news, okay, kind of give me the catalyst to focus on. Okay, so I know that, let's say tomorrow we have a Canadian news and I'm looking to buy the dollar cap. Okay, so that's a good chance, right? If the news release, there's certain volatility spike, ideally this would just spike up, and maybe if it doesn't go all the way to my target, at least it moves like halfway towards my target ideally, and I can manage that stop, right? I can manage the trade shift, stop loss to break even, etc. Okay, so that's the whole idea about news trading in terms of the mindset and the psychology going in. Okay, so why I use a breakout entry technique is because I don't need to then be in front of my computer to trade it at that specific time, right? I can be doing something else on Friday night, right? I won't be in front of my computer tomorrow at 8:30. I'll be at dinner, okay? But that does not mean you can't trade, right? So that's where I use the breakout technique. Okay, so the benefit of a breakout technique is basically if tomorrow news comes in and this price drop, okay, it did not hit my entry, nothing will happen to me. Okay, so when the news release and I see, oh, the market came down, what I just need to do is I cancel this order and that's about it, right? I'll reanalyze the entire chart, look for a next opportunity. Now what happens is if tomorrow the news comes in and this starts to go up, then automatically if it crosses 2620, I will be getting in because of the pending buy stop order. And then what I'll do is just shift my stop to break even, and then I'll see how far this trade can ride with a first target at 1.28. Okay, so the entire thought process over here is quite straightforward. There's no need to, I want you to realize, right? There's no need to panic, like, what will happen, and what's the risk, because everything is done, right? Everything is prepped up for tomorrow news catalyst. Okay, so that's the idea I want you to see as well as you are trading. Right, so that's my view on dollar Canadian. I don't think you need to go to any time frame or any lower time frame. Maybe the slight detail over here is if you want to, you can go to a 1 hour chart, and if let's say tomorrow the market come down a little bit before the news, you can actually, I would say, like, take this entry, put it a little bit lower so that your risk to reward can be slightly better. Okay, that's personal choice, right? But in order to do that, again, if you're trading at lower time frame, you need to spend a little bit more time to monitor the market. Okay, so that's always a balance, right? If you want lower time frame, you want more activity, you need to spend more time monitoring the market. Okay, so for me, 4 hour is usually my entry time frame. Okay, so dollar cat, do take note of that, right? There's a good opportunity over here as well. Okay, let me very quickly jump to some of the chart over here. Okay, let me take a look. Okay, we'll talk about dollar first, and then we'll go into some of the cross pair. Okay, dollar franc is another one that I think you can consider if you're interested in it. Okay, so from a daily time frame perspective, nothing much, from all the way to the back on the left hand side of the chart. But the focus here is on the daily. We can see this huge rejection. Okay, that rejection, if you go to a weekly time frame, is gonna be something like a pin. Okay, can you see that, right? Or even the monthly chart, you're gonna see that pin. Okay, see that pin? So it's basically a rejection. Okay, so that tells me that there's a good chance the market can continue to the downside at least for another move. Again, why the principle of 1, 2, 3? Okay, so with that in mind, I'll be looking for sell opportunity. Okay, I might have forgotten whether I did share with you this before, but one of the entry technique you can consider is what we call a divergence, right? And you can combine divergence principle with double top or double bottom. Okay, now this is not really a confirmed double top yet, but if I go to the 1 hour chart, you can very clearly see a divergence has already been forming. Okay, the market is heading higher, RSI momentum indicator is coming down. So this usually suggests a lack of energy, lack of momentum, and a reversal is highly probable. Okay, so you want to then focus on that potential reversal coming in. Okay, so this is not really a double top, but some of you might see it as a triple top. Again, doesn't really matter, but if you get the hang of it, the principle behind it, there's a lack of momentum, you want to look for the reversal. Okay, so that's where I started to look up for that trade. And for me, again, I'm using a breakout technique over here. The entry is at 9710. Okay, and the stop loss will be at the current high, 9805, and the target I'm looking at right now is at 9280. Okay, so this is a very nice risk to reward. You can see it's about 4.5. And of course, if I go to a higher time frame, the target here would coincide pretty nicely with this trend line. Okay, so those of you who are interested in dollar franc, do keep an eye on that. I do not know if you want to be overly aggressive on this as well. Okay, because if you are looking at a 1 hour time frame, you actually can put this in. This is more like a wedge or even the diagonal. Some of you might even consider, can I put my breakout entry here? The answer of course is yes, right? But you'll be a little bit more aggressive. Aggressive means you might get tagged in, get out first, or experience some kind of pullback, a drawdown, minor drawdown before the market move. Again, nothing is 100% right, but there is pros and cons for each entry method. Okay, so for me, I tend to prefer a little bit conservative, so that's where I look at it, right, from a 4 hour time frame perspective. That's my entry. Okay, so that's also dollar franc. For those of you who are keen, I can take note of it. Okay. So as I mentioned on Tuesday as well, right? This week there's a lot of dollar related opportunities. Okay, so do keep an eye on that. Okay, one thing to note also, because you see right now dollar franc is coming down, there's a good chance means euro dollar would probably also hit higher. Okay, usually euro dollar and dollar franc would have this relationship called inverse relationship. Okay, it's not 100%, but they have kind of inverse relationship. When one come down, the other goes up. Okay, so do take note of your risk exposure as well if you are looking to buy, or in fact you already bought into euro dollar. And if you are looking to also sell the dollar franc, okay, do take note of their risk management. Okay, yeah. So let me just remove that drawing over here. Okay. Other than that, in the dollar pairs, those are the ones. Just now I went into the euro to share with you a little bit in terms of the crosses, right? So first one here you want to keep an eye on is actually Euro Australia. Okay, you can see very nice strong push, 1 2 3, and then we have a nice reaction of this as well. Okay, I don't think the opportunity is gonna come this week. We only have today and tomorrow anyway. Okay, but I think this one here next week we might talk about it, right? Just wanted to put this here so that you guys know about it. For those of you who are interested, you know, you can start monitoring, but I think next week we're gonna dive a little bit more into the details of that. Okay. Euro Canadian as well, I think is worth considering or put it into your watch list. Not a trade yet, but soon. Okay. Why is because can you see here 1 2 3. Okay, so that's kind of like a triple bottom, and the market has yet to be able to break through, right? And we have a very nice reaction as well. So what we're gonna wait out for is you know, if we see a little bit of a consolidation by next week, maybe Tuesday or next Thursday, this will give us a very solid opportunity to the upside. Okay, so we'll just be patient a little bit on the 1 hour time frame. Okay, we want to at least kind of see a little bit of a consolidation. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more again on next Tuesday on these two pairs. Okay, so those are the opportunities as of tomorrow and today. Okay, as of this week, what's left. Okay, hope that's clear. Okay, other than that, in terms of the FX side of things, really nothing much. Yeah, the yen pairs, my suggestion is don't touch it at the moment. Okay, it's likely not gonna give you much, but if let's say next week we're gonna have any opportunity, I'll probably dive a little bit deeper as the opportunity presents itself next week. Okay, this week really nothing much there. Good. Okay, I want to also maybe if I can find an opportunity to share with you a little bit. Let me see. Okay, I'll use KiwiCat to share with you a little bit in terms of like tips, right? So these are principles that you can apply in any technical analysis. Okay, sometimes I get questions like trader ask me, right? If I'm looking at so many instruments, how do I filter which one would I know to focus on? Okay, the answer to that is actually quite straightforward and quite simple. You want to first identify potential key areas. Okay, that means that if the market price is close to a very significant support or resistance, you want to start paying close attention to it because there's a very high chance the market will give you some kind of reaction. Okay, so if you take a look at KiwiCat, okay, this is on a 4-hour chart, but if I go to daily, it's the same, right? So what you see over here is this level is a very significantly strong support because when the market came down, it gives off a very strong reaction, right? So this is definitely a very important level from even from a daily time frame. Okay, so this level here is definitely something we want to keep an eye on, and what you observe is that right now the market price is getting close to it. Okay, not there yet, very close. These are opportunities that you want to start paying a little bit more attention. Why? Because if the level is important, there's a good chance there's a reaction off there, okay, which can give you kind of like a rejection. Okay, now this does not mean you buy when the market touches that level, but what it means is you want to keep an eye on it. Okay, and if today you want to look for a reaction to buy, okay, that means we expect it to bounce and we want to look for buy opportunity. There are two patterns that you want to keep an eye on. Okay, the very first pattern is a crawl, okay, or what we call a diagonal. Okay, this pattern here can break off this level, and to some traders they will call it what we know as a false breakout or fake breakout. But the idea is you want to ask again, how did price develop, right? If it's gonna break off very slow, something like that, there's a good chance we can still see upside, okay, and this is potentially a buy trade. Okay, now the second pattern that you want to keep an eye on is a V shape, right? Which means you get a strong rejection back up, and after that it starts to do a little bit of consolidation, then this will give you a buy opportunity. Okay, so again, when the price is reaching a significant level, you definitely want to keep a close watch, okay, because opportunity might present itself. Now when we talk about the yen, you want to take note of like pound yen. Can you take a look at that? That is a very significant level, right, for pound yen. We are there. We had a little bit of reaction, but of course this is a little bit too early this week. Therefore, we're not going to focus too much on that because you're not going to get anything this week. Maybe next week, right? So you want to again also understand a little bit in terms of the concept of time. Okay, now this is important because if today you're gonna look at, in terms of all this FX here by itself is about 26 pairs, right? If you're gonna look at all of them every day, it's gonna take out a lot of time. Okay, so you need to be focused. Okay, so you realize that, hey, this week we're focusing a little bit more on the major pairs, but as the opportunity starts to present itself, maybe next week we're gonna focus a little bit more on like pound yen, euro cat, or even Aussie cat, Kiwi cat, etc. Okay, so you want to slowly, as you practice, eventually you're gonna develop a little bit of what we call concept of time, which means that you roughly know whether this week you're gonna get any setup or not. If you're not likely gonna get it this week, then no point focusing, right? So that's why you realize I don't talk about all this too much in detail within this week, because we need to give it a little bit more time. Okay, so those are the ones that I want to talk a little bit about. Now let's go into Go. Okay, so this is what we share on Tuesday. Nothing has changed yet. Overall, we're basically still looking at it at exactly the same. Okay, we saw this little bounce off, and then this is again a pattern that in Elliott wave we call it a potential expanding. Therefore, we're going to look for upside somewhere around the zone with our stop below, okay, with a target here. So nothing has changed. Okay, now if I go to the lower time frame, for those of you interested in short term, okay, you might have an opportunity to sell, though I personally wouldn't do it because I'm not, again, a very short term person. Okay, now if you're looking at a short term, you have this pattern over here that's running right now. Okay, so you have this little top, you have this little push, you have this consolidation. So we are expecting this to buy, right? So what you can do is you can look to sell it down here. Okay, the room for you to profit from is not huge. Therefore, I say it's short term. So it really depends on whether it fits into your personality. Okay, one of the most direct way to sell it is a breakout. Okay, so you have this level here. You have this 1, 2, 3. You have this move down. You form a low. This might consolidate a bit. This can be your entry point for a breakout. Your stop loss can play somewhere above there. Your target here maybe is a 1:1 risk reward. Okay, the level for those of you who are interested, to be specific, is somewhere around 1843. Okay, for those of you who are keen in this short-term sell. Now, if you are familiar with what we call harmonic patterns, okay, which is one of the strategies that I trade quite frequently in the past, we do have a pattern over here that is forming as well. Let me just very quickly check that. Okay, this is quite borderline, but we'll just take it as it touches at 618. we have what we call a potential godly pattern, right? So harmonic pattern looks something like that. Now, you might have seen some of this analysis before, on website and things like that. So how to trade it is that if this decides to go a little bit higher, somewhere around this level, that's where you look for the sell down and then continue to look for the upside from this level, right? That's where the long-term picture plays in. Okay, so if you're looking at a harmonic point of view, then all this here is irrelevant. Your entry would be somewhere around 1866. Okay, and of course, if you're looking at selling at 1866 based on a harmonic pattern, the stop loss is going to be at 1874, right, which is above that previous high. Okay, and of course, your target can be the same at 1830, which is the long-term potential buy that we're looking out for. Okay, so this is for those of you who are interested in harmonic pattern. Now, the beauty about harmonic pattern is that it's very objective. Okay, there's no guesswork in the patterns. Okay, they are very, very reliant on Fibonacci's. Okay, so that's why you see, I just pull from a swing high to a swing low. This point here, which is B point, comes in near the 618, and therefore this is called a godly pattern, which completes at 786. Okay, now if you are quick enough, you do realize that harmonic patterns are usually W or M in shape, right? Depending, of course, the direction. Okay. Having said that, can you see that from this swing low, we have a potential M shape that can develop too? Okay. So let me very quickly also measure that and share with you, right, the beauty of harmonic pattern as well, so that for those of you interested, then you can dive a little bit deeper into this strategy. Okay, so can you see that in this case, right, we take from here, it goes up, it comes down, the retracement comes at 786, right? So because of that 786, the pattern that we're seeing is going to be different, right? It's going to be what we call a butterfly pattern. Okay, let me just remove those drawings first. Okay, a butterfly pattern is going to complete, let me put in a fib. Okay, it's going to complete at 127. Wrong one. This, yep. Okay, it's going to complete at 127. So how it's going to look like, it's going to look something like that. Okay, just change the color a bit. Okay, and that's where you look to buy, right? So what can happen if those of you are quick? Okay, you can realize that if you're trading based on harmonic strategy, right? What can happen is this can go back up. You look for sell here, okay, and then this point here would be there, okay. And what's gonna happen is that you're gonna look for sell if the market is gonna give you picture perfect, right? What's gonna happen is it's gonna come down somewhere around here. You sell it, you take profit here. From here, you buy it, and then you look for another move to the upside. Okay. So that's the beauty of harmonic pattern, right? So it's very what we call objective. There's no guesswork. You have specific level that you're looking to get involved in that trade. Okay. So for those of you interested, you might want to spend a little bit more time to go and research what harmonic pattern really is. Okay. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea. Okay. So that's on gold. Okay, at least for the short term, those who are interested, you can look at it from that angle. Okay, but for us, just now, let me just draw back that fibs. Okay, back to the picture on this. Okay, we're looking at 1830. The stop is at 1805 for the long-term buy. Okay, and the target is up there, right? Okay, so this is what we covered just now. Gold. Yeah, so that's on gold. All right, hopefully it's clear. Crude oil, right? Let's take a look at crude oil. Okay, still remember on Tuesday we did mention a little bit on crude oil. Okay, the market continued to hit higher. But I always say, do not just buy into the market because it's going higher, or do not sell just because it's coming down. ask yourself how, right? How is the market moving? You realize that this is not very strong in momentum, especially this two peak. Okay, you pull in RSI, you see the divergence, right? Can you see the divergence? Okay, so don't buy already. Instead, if you're looking at crude oil, you can start looking for sell opportunity, maybe something like that. Okay, again, a breakout, right? This will put you around 0265. Okay, 120 and 65 cents. Your stop maybe at 124.40. Okay, so you can look at this trade from this angle. Your target can be taken from a midpoint channel or even this low here. Okay, and your second target, of course, you can go all the way to the bottom of the channel. Okay, again, for those of you who are interested in trading commodities, do take note of your margin required. Yeah, so that's important. Good. Yeah, I see a question over here. Someone asked, right? Yen pairs are in reversal now. Yeah, they're kind of reversing, but it's not a sell yet, right? I mean, we kind of see a little bit of a topish here. Okay, in all the yens, you can see a little bit of topish. But this is a little bit too early, right? Because what can happen is just basically maybe a consolidation, a minor pullback, right? And this can still go. Okay, so you do not want to just sell into it when you see the very first sign of a stall, right? It's not even potential reversal yet, it's just a stall. So I wouldn't call it a reverse, right? I'll just call it that we're kind of at a key zone. Let's wait and see how the market react. Okay, all the pairs are like that, right? So this week, don't touch the yen, right? This week, don't touch the yen. Okay, good. I hope that's clear. S&P is still doing as what we are looking for on Tuesday. Okay, so we can still look for this opportunity to look for a buy somewhere around 4060, yeah, for S&P. If you're looking at S&P, Nasdaq, Dow Jones, it's likely gonna be same, right? The direction we're looking for upside. For those of you who are looking at China, okay, China market. For those of you who are following on China market, China indices, you do realize that recently, okay, there's a sell-off, right? For those who are familiar, there's a sell-off because of the crackdown in the Chinese government, right? Like things like Alibaba, Meituan, a lot of those tech companies in China, there was a crackdown, and that's why the sell-off. Okay, now recently there's a recovery, not entirely yet, but a sign of recovery, because the Chinese government decided to say we'll probably not intervene in the future anymore, right? So that's where there's a little bit of a positive sentiment. Okay, but I just want to warn you guys, for those of you who are trading and investing into the Chinese market, don't be overly optimistic yet. Okay, the risk is still quite high in the Chinese market, and from a technical point of view, we need to see the price clear of this entire zone first. Clear off means if you're interested to really buy it, at least wait for it to break and then a pullback. Okay, so you need to be very patient to see that confirmation in the Chinese market. Okay, so just want to highlight again, ask yourself, how did the market go up? It's actually not very fast. Okay, and again, one of the characteristics, you can see a lot of overlap. Okay, so that's not an impulse move. In fact, there's a good chance this might even come back all the way down, retest this before going back up again, maybe forming a triple bottom. Okay, so just be very, very careful for those of you who are interested in this market. I seldom talk about this market, but I want to bring your attention to Nikkei, okay, Japanese. This is not really a short-term trade idea, but more towards a long-term swing. Okay, you can see some of the previous drawing that I've done. Okay, Nikkei here might give you a very good one because this is a study a little bit with correlation. Not this. A moment. Where is it? Okay, that function is missing over here. We are trying to. Okay, it's still missing. Oh, I know. Okay, found it. TradingView changed their user interface. Okay, what I want to do is to show you the comparison between Nikkei and between Nikkei and the yen. Okay, it's not 100%, but most of the time you can see a decent relationship where the orange line is basically dollar yen, the blue line is basically Nikkei. Okay, so most of the time they move quite similarly. Okay, you can see a nice good relationship, right? All the way back here you can see when the blue line drops, orange line drop. When the orange line rally, this was a rally, and they kind of move quite similarly. Okay, not all the time, you can see here, not all the time, but right now, okay, it's quite obvious. Can you see the orange line has moved off tremendously? The blue line is not really moving yet. Okay, what this tells you, okay, is that one, okay, there are two things that can happen. One, the orange line is leading the blue line. What it means is that yen pairs are leading the Nikkei. So yen pairs has already made a very significant rally. If it's gonna lead the Nikkei, means likely we're gonna see a Nikkei rally too. That's the first perspective. Now the second perspective over here is that because one rally, one did not, there is this thing what we call a divergence. That means that if there's a divergence, maybe the rally in yen will need to be corrected. Meaning dollar yen, or in fact most of the yen pair here, might do a significant pullback to match back the Nikkei chart. Okay, so this is what we call inter-market analysis, where you take two different assets that has kind of similar relationship and you can analyze them, based on what we're doing right now. This is called inter-market correlationship. So from a trading perspective, okay, this is something you can take note as well. One, you look out for opportunities to buy the Nikkei. Two, alternatively, you look out for opportunities to perhaps sell the dollar yen or the yen pairs itself, right? When the yen pairs decide to correct itself to match back the relationship with the Nikkei. Okay, so having said all this, okay, the yen pairs, we don't have a setup yet, right? So what we can do is we can also look at Nikkei for those of you interested in trading indices. I'm not saying you want to buy now, okay, but the idea over here is if the market can give us a nice pullback, the Nikkei presents a lot of upside that you can look up for. Okay, now it doesn't need to break all-time high, it just needs to go back to its previous high. This opportunity is pretty interesting to keep watch. Okay, so again, we don't have an entry this week, but I want to bring this up since we have this opportunity to talk about all this little principle and concepts. Okay, yeah? So that's on the Nikkei side of things. Good. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, before we go Bitcoin and Ethereum, I saw a question. Okay, pound New Zealand is already broken resistance. Let's say okay, it really depends on the time frame that you're looking at, right? Now for me, when I look at the chart, I would say this is a more important resistance. You might be maybe looking at a 1 hour time frame, and okay, you might see this as a resistance over here. But be very careful, right? The pattern, right? I'm not sure if you can see this. The possibility of this developing into something like that is also quite high. Okay, so one way to consider is, take a look at your RSI. Right now is still doing a little bit of a divergence. Okay, I'm not saying that it's not going to go higher or that it's going to definitely reverse. Nobody knows what's going to be exactly happening in the market. But most of the time when I see something like that, I want to be careful first. Okay. I personally wouldn't be buying something here, but if I want to buy the pound New Zealand, I want to wait for it to come back. Okay, do something like that, then I'll buy. Right? It's better to buy at a lower price when it reverses than buying at a high when this can potentially form what we call a diagonal. Okay, so this just my food for thought, right? I can be absolutely wrong, and this can just keep going. Yeah. So that's why having a proper strategy with risk management is very crucial. Okay, because you need to know after you enter a trade where you're right, when you're wrong, and when to get out. Okay, so you realize that what we are doing right now in some of the pairs is we are analyzing it, right? I call this the analysis process. Okay, analysis process. I split them quite clearly, right? So I have an analysis process, I have an execution method, and I have a management technique. Now these three are different in nature, right? Analysis process are basically analyzing the chart to decide on the direction, whether you want to buy, whether you want to sell, and things like that. Execution is where the strategy comes in, right? Do you look for a breakout? Do you look for a retracement? Where do you put your entry? Where do you put your stop loss? Where do you put your target? This is execution. Okay, so in terms of like execution, like for example, if you use a harmonic pattern strategy, then your execution is based on harmonic patterns. If you use Fibonacci with a certain combination, right, then your execution will be mainly based on Fibonacci. Okay, so that's the idea of it. Then of course you need to have a management technique, right, which means that if your trade is running in profits, are you going to do something about it? If your trade is running in a loss but have not touched your stop loss, are you going to do something about it? Okay, so that's the idea behind this tree, and every trader trading plan should have this very, very clearly set up. Okay, if you're missing any of this, you realize that your entire trading process, you will find something is lacking. Okay, so you need to fill in the gaps. All right, so hopefully that clears things off. Good. Okay, back to Bitcoin over here. We're still expecting a little bit of a downside on Bitcoin. I would say the level here would be more towards the 618, which is back to where the previous mini low is. Okay, so if you're looking at Bitcoin, you want to focus on 28060. That will be the level to take note of a potential buy if this comes down. Then you look for a buy, right? So you kind of have the mini double bottom kind of formation. Okay, so that's on Bitcoin. If you're looking at short-term sell, you can, but it's a little bit dangerous, right? Because again, I'm not a fan of micro managing the chart, right? Because my personality is I set in my order. I don't like to keep looking at the market all the time. Okay, but for those of you interested in short term, maybe 30 minute, 1 hour, okay, you do have this setup coming in. okay, where you can look for a quick short trade based on this pattern over here. You know, your stop can be placed out there and you're expecting this to come down towards this level. Okay, you can look out for that, right? So this one here will be 29870 and high here is 30670. Okay, so that's on Bitcoin. For those of you keen, Ethereum more or less the same. We talked about this on Tuesday as well, right? So do take note that this still has a possibility of doing a fake break of this support, bounce up, then maybe from there we'll look for the buy, especially here. Okay, so again, be patient. Unlikely you're gonna get anything this week. Okay. So yeah, this week I think a lot of them are still on the major pairs, right? Do keep focus on the major pairs. Good. Yeah, that's all from my side for today. I think there's a couple of things that you definitely want to take note of. Even for tomorrow, right? Like dollar Canadian, we did talk about the news trading and the opportunity over here. Dollar franc is getting close. You might get a trade maybe later tonight, okay, or tomorrow, depending on how the market move. Okay, yeah, Aussie dollar is already moving. Pound dollar, you know, depending on how you play this, the breakout or the retracement opportunity is definitely there within today and tomorrow. Euro dollar did pull back a little bit. Okay, so we'll see how it goes. Now, to talk a little bit about this as well, if let's say the market comes down, right, it takes you out of this stop. Okay, that means if I bought in here, right, if I get stop out here, what's next? Okay, so usually what I do is if I get stop out there, right, then I'll reassess. Okay, then I'll look back and say, okay, is there a possibility that this then develop into something like that? Okay, back to that channel, right? Okay, and if that's the case, does it still give me a high probability upside? If the answer is yes, then what I'll do is I'll look for re-entry at the bottom here. Okay, and that will then be what we know as a pullback, right? A retracement trade. Okay, and in that case, it will look something like that. Okay, and the entry will be around 1.0615. Okay, so yeah, we'll see. You know, again, we nothing 7%. We'll never know how the market develop. But if let's say this trade gets stops out, I'll probably look at re-entry somewhere at the bottom here and see if this goes off. Okay. However, if this starts to take off like that, you know, maybe from here it decides to U-turn and go back up. You know, this is still a triangle. Then I would cancel this pending order and I'll just manage the trade. Yeah, so I hope that is clear also in terms of like, you know, this. Okay, so what I've just explained to you is what I call a management technique. Okay, so you can see when I'm trading or when I have a trade running, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. Okay, all this are actually not, you know, suddenly you think about it, right? It's something that you need to put it into your trade plan. Okay, and you want to design it, or I would say do your trade plan before you trade, right? Because I want you to imagine, right, if today I have no management technique, I'll be now panicking, right? So what should I do? I don't know, right? Should I do this? Should I do that? You know, I have no direction, no guidelines, no framework. Then you will do a lot of stupid mistakes. Okay, so it's important to have your proper trade plan, right? And every component of your trade plan needs to have an analysis process, execution method, as well as management technique. Good. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Okay, and that's all from me for today. This session over here. Hopefully you guys able to take note. Okay, take away some valuable lessons from today's sharing as well, other than just the trading opportunities. Okay, yeah, good. So that's all for me. All the best for those of you who are trading the dollar Canadian maybe tomorrow, right? All the best. Do manage your risk, and I'll see you guys next week again, right? So that's all for me. Goodbye, and